So is Honorable Caroline Ngeleche in the house? If she's not in, directly we move to Honorable Augustine Mwafrika. In the house? In the absence of Mwafrika, we shall follow the list. Very good. In the absence of Mwafrika, we have Honorable Knomas Mutuse. Is in the house. In the absence of Mutuse, follow the list. Let's move up. Could we have Hussein Bade? Honorable Hussein Bade. Mutuse is here. Please. You are next on the order. Next time you have to use your intervention so that I'm able to see you and you put a point of order. Unfortunately, that's a matter that had been spoken on. When you want to reduce time or to make sure that members speak for a shorter time, you have to do that at the beginning of the motion. So it cannot work now. So let's just ask the honorable members who will be speaking, beginning with Honorable Mutuse, to be magnanimous enough to spare some time for the other members. You may proceed, Honorable Mutuse.
Mr. Speaker, before I contribute, maybe to seek the clarification of the chair, I am made to move the motion on order number 9. I am made to move the motion on order number 9. Is it the time to move the motion, or I am contributing on order number? On delocalization. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The issue of delocalization. Number one, many families have been affected as a result of being separated from their loved ones. You would find, and I know specific cases in my constituency, where teachers who are about to retire are posted in counties that are far away, and their wives, who are also professionals in the teachers, are posted in counties that are also very far away. Mr. Speaker, you would realize that the family, even under the Constitution, is recognized as a basic foundation of our society. And therefore, to the extent that delocalization separates families, to the extent that delocalization separates a man and their wife to work in different areas, and they are not able to take care of their children, we find that that policy needs to be reviewed. Number two, Mr. Speaker, even if it was not possible to review the policy on localization wholesome, I find it that teachers should be posted in counties that are far away from the areas during the time of recruitment. New teachers. When you are recruited, you can be posted far away, because we also recognize that we have a country that we have to build. Police officers are posted far away, other civil servants are posted far away. But it is unfair to post teachers who are about to retire, teachers who are building, who have grown up families, to separate them from their kinspeople. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion that the Ministry of Education needs to move to review the delocalization policy so that it conforms to the Constitution in terms of making families to live nearby together, to accord them the status of being the basic foundation of society. I support the motion, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, order. May I acknowledge the presence of the following schools which are in the public gallery?
They are not there.
Oh, they already left. It's okay. We had a number of schools there, but if they have left, that's well and good. Thank you very much. We may move with the debate. And next to speak is Hon Hussein Bade, if it's in the house. As much as possible, I'm following the list. So let's not do a lot of mobilizing. This will really help everyone. Don't you think so? So I'll follow the list as much as possible. On the list next is Hon Amina Nza Mnyazi of Malindi. Is she in the house? If she's not in the house,
she's there. She's there.
Proceed. Where is she? Give her the microphone.
Here.
Please give her the microphone. Proceed. Honorable members, like I've said, I'll as much as possible follow the queue. This will be very fair for everyone. You may proceed.
Asante Bwana Spika. Mimi kwa majina natambulika kama Amina Laura Mnyazi, ni mbunge wa eneo bunge la Malindi, na kwa niaba yangu nataka jambo la kwanza niweze kumshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu kwa kuweza kunifikisha hapa. Nataka pia vile vile niweze kushukuru watu wa Malindi kwa kuwa na imani na mimi na kwa kuniteua mimi kama mbunge wao, na najua hili jukumu lenye ambalo liko mbele yangu ni jukumu kubwa, na naomba Mwenyezi Mungu aweze kusimama na mimi niweze kutekeleza yale mambo ambayo yako mbele yangu. Lengine ni kwamba niweze kupongeza wale watu wote na mawaziri wote walioweza kuteuliwa hivi leo. Nataka niwaambie pongezi. Najua pia kwenu nyinyi ni jukumu kubwa lenye ambalo liko mbele yenu, na haswa pongezi zangu pia ziweze kumfikia dadangu Aisha Jumwa, mwenye ambaye nimeweza kukalia kiti chake kwa sasa. Najua kumekuwa na mambo mengi, lakini Aisha ni mtu mwenye ambaye ako na kura yangu, na ni mtu mwenye ambaye anatoka katika eneo bunge langu, na mimi namuombea kila laheri aweze kuzidi kufungulia milango wanawake wote wa Malindi na Kilifi County kwa ujumla. Lengine Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kuhusu yale matatizo yenye ambayo yanakumba kule katika Malindi sub county, ikiwemo baa la njaa. Kama mnavyoona, matatizo ya chakula na baa la njaa limeweza kufikia kila mahali katika Kenya hii. Sisi pale ndani ya Malindi kuna mswada wenye ambao tuliupendekeza, wenye ambao unafahamika kama Kavunyalalo Irrigation Scheme, ambao mpaka kwa dakika hii hatujaelewa ni kwa nini ama ni sababu gani yenye ambao mswada ama pesa kama zile hazijaweza kufika mashinani ili watu waweze kujisaidia. Nataka niliweze wazi hapa Bwana Spika ya kwamba project kama ile sisi tunahitaji ndani ya Malindi sub county ili tuweze kujiendeleza, kupata pato la chakula, tuweze kuondoa baa la njaa. La pili ni masuala ya utalii. Leo niko na raha kwa sababu tunaona dada yetu msomi ambaye amefanya kazi katika sekta tofauti tofauti, jina lake limeweza kupitishwa kama waziri wa utalii. Na nataka nimpongeze dadangu huyu na kumwambia kwamba awe macho na awe makini. Zile sheria zenye ambazo zinaweza kupitishwa hapa Nakuru ama Nairobi, masi mengine haziwezi kwa ziko sawa sawa, ziwe zinapitishwa pia kule sehemu za Malindi. Malindi ni mji wenye ambao tumetegemea utalii kwa muda mrefu, na tunataka tufanye kazi na kupitisha miswada yenye ambayo itapendekeza na itapendelea ile hali ya watu wa Malindi wanapofanya kazi pale. Usalama nao ni jambo lenye ambalo lazima liliangazie kama mwakilishi wa watu wa Malindi. Usalama ndani ya Malindi sub county tunashukuru kile kichache kenye ambacho the administration wameweza kufanya, lakini pia sisi kama watu wa Malindi wenye ambao tumetegemea utalii kwa zaidi, inanisikitisha mimi kama mjumbe wao, kila masaa tukiona pale ndani ya Malindi sub county tumewekewa red notice. Nchi za kigeni wanaambiwa wasifike kwetu kwa sababu ya masuala ya usalama. Na nashukuru pia vile vile tumeweza kupata waziri mwenye ambaye anaelewa maneno haya. Nataka kumwambia Mheshimiwa Waziri Aden Duale wa usalama kwamba tunataka tufanye kazi zaidi kwa pamoja kuhakikisha kwamba usalama tumeweza kurudisha, ili wageni waweze kurudi ndani ya Malindi sub county ili watu waweze kujitegemea. Donda sugu lenye ambalo limeweza kuathiri Malindi sub county mpaka kwa sasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masuala ya ardhi. Hivi ninavyozungumza, uskota umekithiri ndani ya Malindi sub county. Na ndio maana mimi hapa nataka nifanye kazi na wenzangu kuhakikisha kwamba watu wameweza kupata hati miliki zao. Wiki mbili zilizopita Bwana Spika, kuna watu wangu zaidi ya 200 wenye ambao waliweza kuvunjiwa manyumba ndani ya Malindi sub county, sehemu ambayo inaitwa Pendukiani ndani ya Ganda ward, ambalo jambo kama hilo hatupaswi kuwa nalo katika karne hii na muda huu wa sasa. So hayo ni mambo yenye ambao sisi tunataka tuyaweke sawa sawa ili kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeweza kuweka vitu vetu sawa na watu wa Malindi wameweza kupata huduma. Kwa wale ambao tumezungumza mswada wa walimu, wenye ambao wanakuwa delocalized, na mimi nataka niunge mkono mswada huo, kwa sababu hata vile vile walimu wa Malindi wamezungumza kwa sauti moja na kusema niunge mkono mswada huo. Delocalization imeleta more harm than good to the teachers. Walimu wameweza kuacha familia zao, walimu wameweza kuvunja familia zao, na kuna athari nyingi zenye ambazo zinakuja juu haya matatizo. Sisi tunataka tupitishe miswada yenye ambayo the TSC itaweza kufanya kazi na NAT, itaweza kufanya kazi na KUPPET, ifanye kazi na all stakeholders katika educational sector, ili kuhakikisha kwamba delocalization hata kama inafanyika, kuwe kuna mpangilio barabara wenye ambao unafuatiliwa, ili watu wasiweze kusumbuka katika mahitaji yao ya hapa na pale. Kwa hayo machache, asante Bwana Spika, na labda kabla niketi, ningependa pia kuwish the retired President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta happy birthday, na hata mimi mwenyewe pia Mheshimiwa Gertrude Mbeyu. Asanteni.
Asante sana. Anayefuata ni mjumbe wa Mogotio, Ruben Kiborek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the CS nominees who have been approved by this House. I also want to wish them well as they serve this nation. They are men and women of competence, and we are sure and we are certain they will serve this nation with distinction. Mr. Speaker, I want to support the motion that delocalization, Mr. Speaker, has caused more harm than good. It has caused more harm in the sense that many teachers have been forced to relocate at their old age to different parts of this country, Mr. Speaker, when they're already towards their retirement. They have been inconvenienced. They have had more challenges because at that age, some of them are sickling and want to serve near home. Mr. Speaker, also the young people of my age in the career, Mr. Speaker, the young people who have just married, some have been married, and they are forced to work far away from their spouses, Mr. Speaker. They get the moral fabric of the society, Mr. Speaker, has been broken because a teacher is married to another teacher. The lady is delocalized to Mandera and the gentleman is delocalized to Busia. Mr. Speaker, these are young people who should be working close, because at that age, Mr. Speaker, they need to be close, Mr. Speaker, for the society to be morally upright. They must be close, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, they have really suffered because of such. Another thing, Mr. Speaker, is housing. Many people, Mr. Speaker, are delocalized to rural areas where there is no provision of housing. They get to a place where they don't have anywhere to sleep, and the conditions are very not friendly to someone who comes from urban area or maybe comes from more advanced place of the society, Mr. Speaker. Unless the government put in order the places for accommodation for these people, so that when they are delocalized, they have staff quarters where they can live a decent life as teachers, Mr. Speaker. But before that, Mr. Speaker, they should work in somewhere where they can be comfortable and can serve the country from their own comfort. Mr. Speaker, another factor is delocalization has also been used as a tool to punish those teachers who have issues with their employer, Mr. Speaker. These teachers end up being delocalized because they have differences, or they have administrative differences with those with the employers, Mr. Speaker. They are deployed to areas where it's not conducive or it's not friendly to their kind of environment they have lived before, Mr. Speaker. Many people in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, have been delocalized to Mandera, Mr. Speaker. From my constituency to Mandera, Mr. Speaker, the cost of transport is more expensive than their salary, Mr. Speaker. We have to contribute to them, Mr. Speaker, to report to their jobs, Mr. Speaker, because it is too expensive to go to Mandera than actually to their salary. Mr. Speaker, if they are delocalized, they must be compensated, both in terms of transport, Mr. Speaker, and in terms of their housing allowances, Mr. Speaker, and the hardship allowances, which is sometimes it is peanut, Mr. Speaker. Another factor, Mr. Speaker, that we must do away with this delocalization, Mr. Speaker, is that we get a teacher, Mr. Speaker, who doesn't care about the performance of the school because he's not attached to the society, Mr. Speaker. He goes to a society where he has no personal interest. the results of the school degrades, Mr. Speaker, and the person doesn't care because that's not his place. Unlike when someone who is working there is a local who has interest in the performance of the school and the improvement of the children. Mr. Speaker, for this and many other issues, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion that the localization should be done away with immediate effect, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to wish well the Cabinet Secretary for Education as we hope he will work with the Parliament to improve the standard of the education in this country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me donate my time, Mr. Speaker. I'm a bit generous today. Let me donate my time to Honorable Ngongeno, my senior.
Well, you really don't have that locus standi to contribute time. And honorable members, I'm following the list, so it's very fair. Next to speak on this motion is Honorable Agnes Tereyo of Narok North. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me time to contribute to this motion on review of teacher deployment policy. And I want to speak on this delocalization because it has really affected our teachers and our schools. Mr. Speaker, sir, education is an important aspect in the development of our country. Teachers play an important role in our education sector and in the handling of our children. I support the motion on review of a teacher's deployment policy and most importantly emphasize on delocalization, which has negatively impacted on the performance of our teachers. Among other teachers, it has really affected them because removing teachers from their comfort zone and taking them to where they will be looked like they are newcomers, and these teachers are on their way to retire. And this will mean that this delocalization will contribute to breaking the families of these teachers. Teachers cannot afford to have two houses. They will have one at home with their children and the other one where they will be posted. And in the areas they go to, they will be looked like these are intruders because they don't belong to that place, and it is not the community that has requested this teacher to come to that school. So I'm thinking in Narok, where I come from, Narok North, we have a history of 10 teachers cases involved in teachers in my constituency who have committed suicide just because of delocalization. These teachers have been affected, they have stress, and they cannot discuss that issue with anybody. Because when they go to TSC and the Ministry of Education are not reading on the same script. So we are eagerly waiting for the new education minister to come and solve some of these issues that are affecting education in our constituencies. Because when you go to TSC will not want to listen to the teacher. TSC wants to make sure that once you have been delocalized, you have received your letter, yours is to go. Not even talk about your illness, even if the place that you are going is a place that is not conducive for your health. Therefore, I support this motion, and I ask the TSC to make sure that they sit with the Ministry of Education and sit and make their decisions together. Because delocalization was not a policy that was brought to other stakeholders so that they could discuss it and agree on what is good for the teachers. This was done in isolation, and I don't think it was for our good. And with those few remarks, I want to support the motion. Thank you.
Very well. Bisau Kakai. On Bisau Kakai. Give him the microphone. Bisau Kakai. Very well. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to support the motion because actually delocalization has been very, very negative. In the sense that apart from just family separations, there's been issue of incurred costs because of commuting. Teachers live far apart, and some of them operate an example, leaving Monday morning and coming back maybe on Friday evening. That is an extra cost. Also, Mr. Speaker, there's been also an exposure to accidents because of frequent commuting. Mr. Speaker, I really sympathize with communities, especially in semi-arid areas where they've had shortages of teachers. But by and large, maybe even as we support the motion with an amendment, and knowing very well that this has been passed before to the TSC, that we have a situation whereby what had been requested before during Madam Amina's ministerial position, we try to have an amendment, Mr. Speaker, whereby there is some flexibility in terms of recruiting teachers based on their mean grade within some arid areas where they've had challenges when it comes to teachers. But by and large, Mr. Speaker, we would like to ensure that we keep teachers within their home areas so that also we improve on the quality of that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. I think your point of order on may not now be relevant. The speaker was at the floor, is already out and is down. So we go next. The next speaker, you may bring it later. The next honorable to speak is Parasina of Kajiado South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like also to make my contribution on the motion on the teachers' employment policy, delocalization, and the motion that was brought in the House by Honorable Titus Amal and the amendment brought by Honorable Victor Koech. Honorable Speaker, the issue of the decolorization of teachers teachers being transferred from the local areas of operation, the idea might have been good in the beginning, but the act of doing it is wrong. You know, I'm aware that in this country, transfers of civil servants is allowed across the board, but not for the teachers. They get special interest sometimes in the place they work. Many of them, they get their families there, they set their livelihood there, and get to transfer them back or try to transfer them from where they're operating or remove them because they are born in that area. Sometimes they make them not able to deliver well. I have a teacher, a principal teacher from my place that was transferred, and he was teaching in a school called Engi Secondary School, and the school performing well. But because of the issue of the policy of decolonization by TSC, he was moved to Meru. He went and found another lifestyle, and they had the condition that is facing now, and having traveled for 500 kilometers to a new place to a new station or the new school. I tried to find out, was he transferred or moved because he was not doing well. But the school was doing well, and the place he was taken. In fact, the population of the students is 180. Meaning that to me, or to how he told me this about it, is that it's like he has been demoted. I want to say that even if you are looking on the issue of policy of employment of teachers, I want to say that TSC has acted as a cartel in this country. They come up with the policies, and they don't involve and check on what are the impact to the people or the teacher themselves and the students. Students sometimes perform well based on their teachers, and teachers are able to serve well on the areas they are operating. I want to bring to the House and to your attention, Mr. Speaker, many schools in this country we don't have the staff quarters. So you find the teachers are forced sometimes to rent houses. But if you find the teachers working in their areas of operation, where they have their own homes, they are able to deliver. In terms of harsh conditions and allowances, you are aware that teachers are the most people who are not paid well in this country, and giving them again another condition to be shifted and be taken to other places of operation, you find out they don't do well. And I'm aware that many teachers that are facing this problem, and whenever they are watching and on us on commenting on this floor, they are happy that the parliamentarians today, or the 13th Parliament, is able to debate and check on their issue. Despite the issue of salaries and other allowances, their issue now is coming that the Teacher Service Commission is given a power again to do that, to transfer them. And I think to some extent, they are affecting the way teachers have to do. Maybe you are, Mr. Speaker, sir, I also support that these things to be checked again, this policy to be looked at. Let teachers be involved. And let this TSC not sit in this house in Nairobi, to go to the ground, see how teachers are going through. Last week I was in a tour in one of the wards in my constituency, and I can tell you I visited 3 schools, and no school that has a place that a teacher can sleep. So sometimes they travel 4 to 5 kilometers to attend to that school. Having suffered the same thing, and now you are taking them to other places, I think, Mr. Speaker, for education to be education, or us to have the best, let us allow the teachers to stay there, they are operating, let them given the peace of mind so that they can also be able to deliver. I support the motion.
Thank you. There are a number of interventions here which I think may not be relevant now. So could the following members possibly click out on interventions? That's Irene Mayaka, nominated, Hon Hussein Weitan of Mandera East, on Moses Njendi. Interventions. I'm talking about interventions because now we're in the main motion. And then, so if you could do exactly that, then we'll see if there are any new interventions that will be coming. But next now is Hon Njeri Maina of Kirinyaga. Members, I'm really following the list. I was here before this session in the afternoon, and members were very agitated about fairness. So now really the fairness is here. Give her the microphone, you may proceed. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to note that teachers play a very important role in this nation. We must therefore agree that it is very pertinent for their issues to be looked at and conclusively dealt with. We know that we've had these discussions from time to time, and matters to do with teachers are sensitive because of the competition around the parties which are involved. Mr. Speaker, in that regard, I want to support the motion to do away with compulsory delocalization of teachers. The key word here, Mr. Speaker, is compulsory. It does not mean that this House is against teachers being transferred, but the procedure and the process that is undertaken by the key stakeholders must be looked at thoroughly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have had several complaints from teachers in my home county telling me and narrating how families have been torn apart due to the compulsory delocalization. Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to urge members to ensure that their voices are heard and that it comes out clearly that guidelines and procedures must be put in place so that any transfer of teachers that is going to happen in future should be consultative. And this is a process where we will have guidelines and teachers will be consulted and be able to raise issues on why perhaps they're not able to move to work to another county. I believe teachers do a work that is based on mostly on a calling. So I believe they also understand that it is important that the right to education that is guaranteed by the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is executed. And it is not therefore an intention on their part to deny service to communities that need the services that they offer. Mr. Speaker, sir, the family dynamics, the health, and any other issues that will be raised by the teachers must be considered before they are transferred. Mr. Speaker, sir, compulsory delocalization has been weaponized before by the people who are in power to ensure that the teachers who are pertained or purported to be anti them or anti their interest are transferred to areas where, for want of a better word, is not suitable for their even career development. Teachers are like any other employees, Mr. Speaker, sir. So therefore, their needs must be looked into. And this House must be intentional and ensure that it is seen to the very completion that we do away with delocalization with immediate effect, and we put in procedures and measures for teachers to be able to have a consultative basis of transfer. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to donate my time to the new colleagues in the House. Thank you for the time.
And thank you very much for donating some time to also the other colleagues. So next is Honorable Adams, Sanai, KU North. You are next on the list. Not being there, Sanai.
Honorable.
Order, Wanyama. Dan Wanyama, order. Take your seat down, please. Next is on Julius Ruto cases. Very well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the moment that you've accorded me to make my contribution to this enormous discussion. Indeed, as my counterparts have said, delocalization, that is a new term that came in recently when the then Ministry of Education decided to absurdly move teachers from their area of education or the local area they have been for quite some time to the new areas. Of course, could be it was driven by good motive of a change is as good as a rest. But again, the way it was done, to some extent, it was not procedural. We want to appreciate the fact that Kenya is good. We have diverse culture. We have diverse people. Allowing the new teachers to start teaching from a different area away from where they come from would be a good way, or would be a good thing to be put in place as a good practice. But then, as time goes, as our teachers who have made us to be who we are today, while they are aging, we understand age comes with challenges, age comes with some diseases, even tiring of their mind. Some want to prepare for retirement, and the best way to retire for a teacher is no any other place than the home where they call their home. So at this, we want to allow this delocalization, if it has to be there for better performance, for good integration, and even for the same teachers to understand, to appreciate how Kenya is diverse, that even as they are giving knowledge to these children, they should give on the background of knowing exactly how our country it is. But then we need to encourage, we need to implore upon the policymakers. When they formulate a policy, let them do it within some given limits or boundaries. Let's allow a teacher at the age of around 45 or 50 plus now to begin to get back to the area of residence, to allow this particular teacher to prepare for retirement, because immediately after the retirement, this teacher may not be privileged like some of us or some of our civil servants who are privileged to earn better than them. Their earning is so way low to the extent that even their saving, even their pension at the time of retiring may not be sweeting enough to give them the better life, other than allowing them time to get back to their homes and prepare, if it is agriculture, if it is farming, if it is business, so that they have a place to learn. Nowadays, we have encountered a lot of psychological challenges that our teachers are going through, stress, depression, and most of this, it goes around because the loans they have taken, now they have been delocalized. At the place they have gone, there is no housing, new environment. What do you tell? The next thing, this person will have to indulge in alcoholism, poor performance, if at all we were expecting them to perform, and at the end of the day, some associated diseases will come on them. So I stand in this house to support the motion of relooking at the delocalization. We may not do away with it completely, but we need to reframe it so that we are able to achieve the objective of improving performance and encouraging the unity and cohesion amongst us as Kenyans. Thank you so much for this moment I've been accorded. And I want to accord the remaining minutes to my counterparts, of course, the new ones. And as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, the cry by my colleague member Yegon in the morning, I think we need time to discuss this. That we as new members, we feel that if at all the only time for us to talk is when the House is almost empty, it is not fair. We want to allow the ranking members, the few of them, but accord us time. Even when all of us are here, even some of the senior members, I've never known whether we can make contribution equivalent to them. And even if we have to make errors, let's make errors when they are here. They can assist us improve. Thank you so much.
Very well. I want to also indicate that there will be more time and space and opportunities to speak to this House even during that prime time, especially when now that you passed the motion on nominees to the cabinet, we shall have questions, we shall have petitions, and we shall have many other opportunities. So let's just be in the House on time and you'll get a chance. Next is Hon Kibet Kimingoi. Kibet Kimingoi. Please proceed. There's a mic. Okay, use that one. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. In support of the motion, I rise up. First, I want to commend the mover. And number two, want to reiterate the fact that delocalization in itself is not a bad idea. However, it has been misused, it is being abused, and it has been even in some cases used to force teachers out of service. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I have 2 teachers who at the height of campaigns, because of the position they had taken, were transferred to Lamu, and when they went to that school, the school had actually been closed because of insecurity. By the time they are coming back, they were told they have deserted duty and therefore removed from service. So in exercising this, the proposal to have a clear policy is the way to go. And on this issue, we will also have to deal with the sister issues that are arising out of delocalization. We may be delocalizing because there are inadequate teachers within some areas and in some communities in our country. Then the question would be, why wouldn't we employ new teachers in those areas, knowing the fact that there are so many teachers who are out of employment and they have graduated from school? Number two, to have this have a human face, we must also look at the totality of the welfare of the teacher. We know that because of this program, some schools have been staffed properly, some schools are understaffed. With this, the communities that those schools are, they are now being forced to employ what we are calling the BOM teachers, additionally burdening those schools to be able to meet the cost of those teachers in those schools. Our idea now is that with creation of a proper policy, especially on delocalization, we will be able to map out the areas that need more teachers, we will be able to employ those teachers, and we will be able also to see that the welfare of the teacher in the school is taken care of. Together with that, Mr. Speaker, is the question of the welfare of the teacher in those areas. If, for example, we force a teacher from one constituency to a far other constituency, we know that the medical insurance that the teachers have been given is tied to a certain hospital. While it is true that they have 2 medical covers, the NHIF and their own Minet, we are aware about the issues that have surrounded those 2 insurances. It will be proper now also to see to it that the welfare of the teacher, especially the medical welfare, under these circumstances is taken care of. I would also want to reiterate the point that the honorable member from Keses had said, if you are delocalizing a 58-year-old and hope that he will still make to go back home in retirement, when will such a member of our society be able to prepare for his retirement? All the things that we are asking is that in support of this motion, let the government and the Ministry of Education set out a clear policy that will determine when, how, and to what extent this will be practiced, and in its practice, a human face to be fixed on it. Attendant also to it, Mr. Speaker, is the question of recruitment, the amendment that came through. We know, and we've heard through the statistics that have been provided to us, that there is a huge deficit of teachers in our schools. Further, we know also that there are so many teachers who are qualified to teach within the schools. Ours is actually, let's look into this so that we may be able to absorb this population of teachers into classrooms, that they may be able to effectively teach and also disseminate the information to the children. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
Hon Hussein Weitan, Mandera East. Weitan. Okay. Next, Abraham Kirwa Mosop. Very well. President, give him the mic.
I'm here. Honorable Speaker, allow me to thank you for this opportunity that you've given me to just comment on this motion of delocalization. And before I do that, I want to also thank my people of Mosop for this opportunity as well. Your Honor, Mr. Speaker, the issue of delocalization has become a very sensitive issue in the country at the moment. And as most of my colleagues have mentioned here, and I continue to say, that delocalization was done without the consent of most of the teachers. Kenya National Union of Teachers, KUPPET, and many of these organizations, unions also actually, were against it. From the first place, the compensation that we give to teachers is so minimal that if you move a teacher who is locally employed, who stays at home, who has his own garden at home, who has his food at home, the moment you move him to a different location or a different place, the cost of living is going to be higher, which means the compensation that he's receiving will not be sufficient enough to support a teacher. Two, once you move a teacher from his family, assuming you move a teacher from Rift Valley to Western, he has to look for a place to stay, he has to look for food, he has to figure a way to take care of his family when he's away. And this issue has truly caused a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncomfortability amongst the teachers. So I believe, and I also support this motion, that it has to be reviewed. I think it was hurriedly implemented. I don't think the teachers were consulted. I don't think there was a public participation. So I believe the Teacher Service Commission needs to review this policy, and they need to go back to exactly what helps the teachers. Because it's easy to say that we are going to move a teacher to Nairobi, we are moving a teacher from Kericho to Eldoret, without thinking, how are we going to support this teacher? So I believe that allowing the teachers, or reversing this decision, this policy, to allow the teachers to go back. Every time I'm home, I get a chance, and most of the teachers come to me and tells me, Mr. MP, can you organize for me to come back home? I was transferred because of this localization issue, and it has caused a lot of issues in my family. Can you talk with the TSC? Can you talk with the ministry to allow me to come back home so that I'm closer to my family, I'm closer to my, whatever I do at home? And at the same time, all education is local. The people who understands the community within where they live are the teachers. So if you bring somebody who actually doesn't understand that community, they have to actually learn, understand that community to be able to be effective as a teacher. They may not understand the needs of the villagers, they may not understand the issues that goes on in that village, but when a teacher who grew up in that village, a teacher who lives in that village, understands a lot of issues and the issues that the students and the pupils go through. So it is better, and it is good for our people to go back to where they, where they grew up. Delocalization by itself might not be a bad thing, but the way it was done has truly caused a lot of issues that the teachers are not happy, and so they cannot be productive in their teaching. So my suggestion, Mr. Speaker, is that we go back to what it used to be, we reverse this policy, or come up with a policy that will be able to address better issues that will address education better. And with that, allow me to also donate the rest of my time back to some of our new members who have not gotten a chance to say anything. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have had issues where we want to contribute to the motions, but we've not been given a chance to actually address them. So at this moment, allow me to give back to the rest of the members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. If you are in the house on time, you key in your card, you'll get space. Next here is Hon Joseph Chirorot, Kipkelion East. Very well. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time granted to me. First of all, congratulations for standing in on behalf of the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, about the issue of delocalization, the way it was brought without public participation, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, some of the teachers have really suffered. And also the way it was done, Mr. Speaker, is that it was done in a way as if it was a punishment to some of the teachers, because it was a way of settling scores, and some teachers were transferred out of their home area because they could not get along well with their seniors. So it has been misused, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that also teachers are also human beings like us, and they have families, and some of them are even vulnerable to diseases. Some, Mr. Speaker, who are transferred or delocalized to various places have aged, or they are almost retiring, and going to settle in those places was also a problem, Mr. Speaker. For this reason, Mr. Speaker, it's good actually to have a proper policy which can help to put in a proper manner the transfers and this issue of delocalization. First of all, I think we have to do, or they have to, public participation has to be done so that those teachers who are also willing can go to those transfers. It also affects the community, because we know that some teachers are from some communities and local places, and when they get transferred to go and chill with other communities there, it becomes a problem, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my proposal is that I support the motion, and this issue of delocalization should be actually considered in a proper manner, and therefore I support the motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Gideon Ochanda, Honorable, and thank you for following the queue. You're next. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some of the concerns I wanted to raise, I thought would have been very interesting if you are not on your seat as a teacher leader. Mr. Speaker, I'm convinced as a person that we are addressing one thing, that an anomaly. We are glorifying an anomaly that TSC carried out administratively, and we are trying to look at it in terms of a policy, and even trying to look at it in terms of a policy that needs to be corrected, and even looking at it as a policy that needs to be there. In my view, this was an anomaly that we should not have at all. We have to look at these things in terms of the process. If we're looking at all through from recruitment to deployment, and then after serving for 30, 40 years, another redeployment is done in the name of delocalization, which in actual fact is supposed to be looked at as transfers. So these transfers that we are calling delocalization, the manner at which it was done, is where there is a problem. And the problem is so gross to an extent that you cannot recruit locally, deploy locally, and then wait for 30 years you move the person from the station in the name of another process of redeployment that we are calling delocalization, Mr. Speaker. This is where the problem is. We must correct this thing from the very beginning. We must correct it from the recruitment level. We must correct it at the level of deployment, such the rest of the things are looked at as transfers, not another administrative process where we collect a big number of elderly teachers, people who are almost retiring, and you put them in buses and you hound them from their local areas to far off districts and counties. I think this is where the problem is. The whole idea of delocalization, in my view, should not be there. If we look at this thing from the root, let's recruit a teacher as any other civil servant who can be placed and work anywhere in this country, and he gets to know that from the very beginning, so that when he or she is deployed in Garissa, let her go and work in Garissa. If she's taken to Durkana, let her work. And when the process of transfers are effected, we look at it as transfers like it happens to any other civil servant. This idea that you post them locally, recruit them locally, and then all of a sudden you hound them out of the local environment after serving for a period of time in the name of a new thing, administrative exercise called delocalization, in my view, is wrong. It's totally wrong, and I believe, Chair or Mr. Speaker, as a teacher leader, this thing needs to be picked from there. And it is something that, in my view, we don't need to do a policy for now. Let's correct the process of recruitment. Let's correct the process of deployment. And immediately those things are corrected, then there will be no need of something called delocalization. People will be transferred, teachers will be transferred. So I think if we don't look at this thing of delocalization as when people are already almost retiring, why should we have it as a permanent thing that must have a policy? It should not be there, in my view. We should not be having a policy called a policy localization. Where there were messes from 2018 to date in the name of delocalization, let's handle it administratively, Mr. Speaker, such that there is a process where even we don't do it en masse, we do it in a manner that there are notices, because it is not the mistake of these teachers who are getting delocalized. It was not their mistake. They didn't post themselves to those schools. They didn't recruit themselves to those schools. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue of delocalization needs to be looked at afresh, so that we look at transfers in a manner like we look at any other transfer of a civil servant. And when we look at it in that manner, we need to consider very many other things. You can't allow somebody to serve for many years in one station, and after those many years, they are moved to go to strange places which they really don't know. As at the moment, Mr. Speaker, recruitment, you remember, was being done at the sub-county and the county levels, of particularly the primary school teachers, and even the secondary school teachers. It's being done by the school boards. Now this has been moved in the last, I think, 1 year or so to Nairobi. But the process of identifying who is supposed to be recruited is still identifiable with the sub-county where somebody comes from. So somebody like now Bondo, people, applicants are picked. They apply from the office at level at the Bondo. They are brought to Nairobi, and when postings are being done, it is this MTSE that posts teachers to their local areas. And once you have posted them to their local areas, why harass them later when they have settled in those places for such a long period of time? So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to say, that TSC must just look at its processes of recruitment afresh, must look at its process of deployment afresh. And there should be nothing like redeployment. There should be transfers. No more transfers the way civil servants are transferred. And sometimes transferred could be requested. Teachers will be requesting for transfers like many other civil servants do. When you are transferred to a place where you can't fit, there are always reasons why that can't happen, and you are asked for it. So I think this process really needs to be looked at the way we look at other civil servants. There are a lot of advantages when you work elsewhere other than your area. There are very many advantages. But when this thing is brought in an abrupt manner, we are in 2018, now 2018, if you are in your local areas, you are getting moved out. That's wrong. That's where the problem is. But there's a lot of advantages in one working outside their local areas. Even some of us who are taught by teachers who are from far off our places, the amount of respect that those teachers have locally is much different from when a local person is teaching in their own local area. There are a lot of advantages. But we can't look at that in the direction where we remove teachers where they have been for years in a mass manner. I think this is something that should not be looked at, Mr. Speaker. And you, again, as a teacher leader, I want to believe that this needs to be revisited. We don't need to be doing delocalization. We need to rectify our processes of recruitment and deployment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Hon Abdi Sirat Ali, nominated. Give him the microphone. Or any mic around that. Very well. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this platform to address this House. First and foremost, may I take this chance to thank my party, UDA, and the President for nominating me to this House. Mr. Speaker, this is my first maiden speech, and I would like to contribute to the motion by supporting the delocalization of teachers. Teachers, like other civil servants, should never be saturated in one place, and when we have shortage in other areas. Remember, the place where I come from, northern Kenya, we have historical challenges with teachers. And unless affirmative action is practiced, whereby we lower entry points to teach in colleges, we cannot just try to concentrate teachers in areas and leave out those areas. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I would like also to highlight some real challenges that are undergoing in my counties, I mean northern counties. One of them is drought. Mr. Speaker, currently we are having a ravaging drought which has completely wiped out livelihoods. You are aware that those communities depend on livestock, and due to this cyclic and punishing drought, those livestock have been lost. As we speak now, we are almost losing human lives because of that drought. Mr. Speaker, our president has flagged off relief food almost 40 days ago. And as we speak, no tangible relief food has reached those destinations of northern Kenya, particularly Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Tana River, Turkana. Mr. Speaker, we cannot change the pattern of drought. It's a natural disaster. But we can change the effect of drought by mitigating, having proper plans and mitigations, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we are undergoing ravaging drought, we have a twin challenge of insecurity. The little attempt by community-based organizations, NGOs, and well-wishers are not able to reach the final destination due to terror attacks. These attacks are done within our borders. Our security team are becoming helpless. Mr. Speaker, to add insult on injury on, to add also to the problems, Mr. Speaker, our own security team are not helping the situation. They are also doing their part in adding to the insecurity. Human lives are lost in and killer circumstances. kidnapping, killing by our own security team, Mr. Speaker. We have seen human lives lost through the hands of our own security. Bodies have been dumped into rivers by mere suspects. Yes, you are suspected. No judicial process is followed. Mr. Speaker, human lives are just lost as easily as that, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad our president has disbanded the killer squad, but we should not leave them like that. They must be taken to account for what they have done, Mr. Speaker. Action is needed, Mr. Speaker, and that action must be done now, must be taken now, Mr. Speaker. We have the other issue of health, Mr. Speaker. Health, decent health is a human right aspect, Mr. Speaker. And as much as we are doing some attempts, Mr. Speaker, people are still moving longer distance to get medical attention, Mr. Speaker. I support the president in increasing the contributions to NHIF, because NHIF is the only organization that is doing something at least tangible. We need to fund NHIF, reorganize, and increase the contributions from the current ceiling of 1,700 to at least 10,000, 8,000, depending on the income of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. We must charge the rich and let them pay more to support the poor, Mr. Speaker. In that way, we will cover the 50 million Kenyans who are in need of help, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other issue we're having in those marginalized areas of northern Kenya is the area of housing, Mr. Speaker. This KK government, Kenya Kwanza government, has started to have housing, Mr. Speaker, for this country. We urge the government to start from those needy counties. Let's have bottom-up approach will help those who are already marginalized to have access to housing, Mr. Speaker. The other issue we have is the issue of, Mr. Speaker, the issue of ID cards. We are still having challenges with getting Kenyan national ID cards on those marginalized counties. I don't know why the person who is coming from northern Kenya is not able to have ID cards as easily as the person who is coming from Busia. We have lawyers who are in Uganda and in Kenya, and they don't have a problem. When I come from Mandera, I'm told, oh, you are bordering Somalia. You should be subjected to unnecessary processes. Mr. Speaker, we can't have two countries. We have Kenya, and let's have one uniform application of rules, Mr. Speaker. Our young men, youth are frustrated. I mean, they are going under frustrations. They cannot get ID cards as quickly as possible. Hence, they cannot get even employment. Even they can't go to higher education. Many of our area members, have spoken about that. Nothing is coming out yet. We will move very fast, and we will demand our right, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, I donate my time, and thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a maiden speech. Next is Hon Mangale Chiforo Modo, Lunga Lunga. Very well. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion by Honorable Titus Kamala, together with amendments proposed by Honorable Koech from Chepalong. Mr. Speaker, Teachers Service Commission, it is frustrating the teachers of this country, because delocalization was brought about when they wanted to punish the unionists. Now it has turned, they have done away with the union. Now they have come now to the teachers themselves. History is very clear. Teachers of this country in 1967, in their own wisdom, decided to form Teacher Service Commission so that they can have an employer who will actually take care of their interests. But now it has turned to be a nightmare. Delocalization is frustrating teachers. Delocalization is killing teachers. Delocalization is making teachers of this nation to look like they have nothing now. They are like useless. Just imagine, I have an example of a teacher who had glaucoma, and he was forced to this animal called delocalization, taken far away, 500 kilometers away from his home. Now today, the teacher is blind. There are many other teachers who have been suffering, so many. My colleagues here, honorable members, have contributed that there are teachers who have been separated with their spouses. There are some who have been transferred while the age is, imagine, 58 years. It's too much. Just to say, Teacher Service Commission ought to employ, they need to employ more teachers. Again, we know that there is this issue of transfers. Let the teachers be allowed to apply transfers. We know there are so many teachers who have applied transfer and they have not been given. They're just there, but they are just touching those who are, the teachers who are already settled, and take them away from their homes. I want to also stand with my colleagues that this delocalization menace should be stopped forthwith so that our teachers can settle where they are comfortable. They are human beings. They are also, you know, you cannot compare teaching profession with other professions. You see, they are handling, let's look, for example, the primary teachers are handling small children whom maybe they are from the same culture. So we need to stop this, Teacher Service Commission need to stop this animal called delocalization. And teacher management generally has been poorly handled since the coming in of the new CEO. You can imagine all the programs which have been introduced, they are punitive. This thing they call teacher appraisal, many other things they have introduced, but they all look punitive. The head teachers and principals are always online to feel, I don't know what, so that they are appraised and nothing is happening. And again, it has become very difficult for teachers to be promoted in this country. I think time has come for this House to protect the teachers of Kenya so that they are also being considered to be human beings and also professionals. Again, I want to mention that school heads, they have been detached from their fellow teachers. They are being considered to be managers, and new ranks have been introduced just to make sure that they are dictating terms to the, let me not say other teachers, but the teachers who are the classroom teachers. So we need to actually address this issue so that we bring it into rest for the teachers of this country to enjoy and also work as any other professional in this country. We cannot allow the Teacher Service Commission to twist all these other stakeholders. You can imagine, they can not even work together with the ministry officials. We are always in the sub-county offices, sitting together, bringing peace and harmony. For what? I think everybody, the Teacher Service Commission, need to respect that the ministry officials in the sub-county and even at the country level. Nationally too, they need to. So the new minister for education, he has a responsibility to bring this mess into arrest and also make sure that he brings discipline and order to the Teacher Service Commission in total. Recruitment of teachers should be considered to be a very serious exercise, and it should be done at the sub-county level. This issue of bringing all issues or all the processes into the national level or the Teacher Service Commission headquarters, sometimes it deprives chances to other teachers. So, Mr. Speaker, TSC has turned now to be eating its own initiators. And we need to save the teachers through this House. Honorable Speaker, I want to stand and support this motion that delocalization is to stop forthwith so that teachers can be treated with decorum and respect so that they also enjoy as human beings. Asante sana. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Next, on Moses Injendi, and thank you for following the queue despite being a ranking member. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise to support this motion as amended. Mr. Speaker, I would imagine that TSC had a very good idea when it came to this delocalization. But I think the challenge was or is to do with how they managed this process. But however, I would imagine, for example, personally, that one school in a particular school, from class 1 to class 6 or 7 or 8, proceeded to second school in the same school, if that primary school has also a second school, then went to college. When it came to posting, he's also posted in the same school, same village. And we know how our villages are. We come from particular clans, particular tribes. I would imagine this kind of person or this kind of community would not grow, would not expand his knowledge. We have to share that even a village, when a village is exposed to some foreign culture, different kind of behavior, it can itself reflect on how it goes about its life and maybe change. But Mr. Speaker, when you look at the whole process of delocalization from the TSC, we are imagining that it was implemented in a way to punish teachers. Because when you look at, for example, other cadres of employment, for example, nurses, when it comes to posting for nurses, when it comes to posting of police officers, when it comes to posting of vet officers, there's no cry as it is currently with the teachers. Mr. Speaker, TSC must consider, and as I'm saying that I'm supporting this motion with amendment, I know the academic calendar for schools is ending in December. I would urge that TSC immediately reverses all the transfers it actually effected by December, that teachers come back to their usual positions so that we can actually relook at the whole policy, the whole program of posting teachers. Mr. Speaker, when you look at even the term itself, delocalization, the connotation itself is very negative. Whom are you delocalizing to where? Because we think all of us are Kenyans. So you are delocalizing one from where to which kind of region? And if you are delocalizing someone and you take him to another region, in itself becomes very negative to this particular person in that particular area. Mr. Speaker, they have really to reconsider, even when it comes to this business of delocalization, When you look at the Education Act, it talks of, when it comes to a primary section, that when it comes to a primary section, our per-unit, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, they must be taught their mother tongue. So when it comes to delocalization, you are delocalizing a head teacher. For my case here, most of the teachers who have come to my area, Kakamega County, Malava, they are from Bondo. So you're delocalizing a person from Bondo to come and manage a school in Western, which is Luya. How will this head teacher manage, supervise the teaching of the pupils in class 1, class 2, to ensure that really the language that they are being taught is a cultural language? Mr. Speaker, I think when it comes to this business of teachers, they must reverse the whole thing, that we have to start with, after training, a policy comes up that after training, then teachers can be posted, particularly in second schools. Because I recall myself, when I was in high school, teachers who taught me were not from my village, and there was no complaint. So TSE or the CEO must reconsider herself. How come this particular time round, teachers are crying? Everyone is crying. In other sector, when it comes to posting, when it comes to deployment, there's no noise as it is when it comes to TSC and the postings. So, Speaker, this is an area that I would ask the CEO to listen to the voice of people's representatives, because it looks like the CEO has killed Nat, the CEO has killed Kopet, where you sit, that your voices are not being heard by her. And now that we are speaking, Mr. Speaker, I think she should listen to the voice of Kenyans who are crying because of her treatment of the teachers when it comes to this delocalization. Mr. Speaker, in my area, I've seen teachers there from other areas. Teachers actually who are sick, completely sick. Some of them have, they are suffering from stroke. Some of them are always going to hospital for treatment. Then I was asking myself, why would this kind of teacher be delocalized, come from his family where maybe the wife was taking care of him, come to a far place school to teach? How would this person even concentrate in school? Mr. Speaker, I've also seen teachers, really, and I don't know how come TSC does not have the feelings to see this or to notice this, who are just newly married. Someone just newly married, and you understand when you are newly married, especially from where we come from, the tropics, you want to be with your wife closely, and then you transfer the newly married teacher to a different school. You actually breaking up the family. There was honorable member in the morning here was talking of most of the male teachers, after being transferred, they end up marrying another woman or having a concubine. We also know of now, even where female teachers, because the husband now is far away, like in Coast, in Western here, where now you have now another man who is actually living with that madam teacher because of separation from the husband. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a fact of life that we have to bear up with, and we ask TSC really to consider the whole...
Yes, what's your point of order? Give her the micro. Order member, you now have the micro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The honorable member who's mentioning about the ladies who are left and they start getting other men, I think it is not in order because he's not a woman.
Okay, hold. Malulu Njen, you have been advised to use as much as possible parliamentary language. You may proceed. Give Honorable Malulu Njendi the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But there was an honorable member here from Kericho who also said men get married. and we are all human beings. So when men get married to other ladies, I believe she's getting into a relationship with another lady who could be also someone else's wife. Someone else's wife. That's how it is, Madam Mheshimiwa. So I would finish by urging TSC to reconsider this particular position. If it is serving TSC politically, these has served TSC politically, because I know of teachers who are also not speaking the language of Azimio, who are really victims to these transfers. So it has served them, and now that we have a new government, TSC should just reconsider and get teachers back to their stations. There is, I am aware, there is a circular where they are saying that those teachers who would like to revert to their local schools, they identify teachers who also want to change. Mr. Speaker, this should not be the business of the teacher to identify who is willing to transfer or to get back to the local school, because the teachers may not know. Let TSC just redeploy, get these teachers back to their local sub-counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. On Hamala Muhwana Lurambi.
I'm the mover.
The mover, no. Please key out. Then on Marine Kitanyi Eldai. Okay, next on Ali.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Ningelipenda kuunga mkono na kusema ya kwamba mikakati maalum inafaa iwekwe katika tume hii ya TSC kulingana na vilio vya walimu wengi kote nchini. Mimi kwanza nitazungumzia eneo bunge langu la Nyali. Sisi wabunge wa taifa tuna majukumu makubwa sana ya kuwekeza katika elimu. Na kadri tunavyozidi kusonga mbele na kujenga shule hapa na pale katika wodi mbalimbali, tumekuwa na changamoto sana ya uhaba wa walimu, na vile vile wakati ambapo walimu wanaandikwa kazi, hawa walimu hawaandikwi kazi kutoka maeneo yetu. Ni kana kwamba kuna njia ambayo TSC inatumia, njia ambayo inafaa kupigwa msasa na kuhakikisha ya kwamba masuala yote yanayohusu walimu wa Jamhuri ya Kenya inaweza kuangaliwa kwa undani na kwa umakini kabisa. Tukizungumzia kazi zao, watu kuondolewa katika maeneo yao, kupelekwa katika maeneo mengine bila ya sababu, na wakati wa kuajiri unashtukia kwamba ni watu kutoka sehemu zingine wanaletwa katika sehemu zile, na kuacha walimu ambao wale wako pale, na kufanya zile shule ambazo sisi tumezijenga kama wabunge kuwa na uhaba wa walimu na kutegemea wale walimu wa BOM. Vile vile ningelipenda kuzungumzia TSC yenyewe. Mimi kama mbunge katika bunge la 12, bunge lililopita, hili ni bunge la 13, nimekuwa na wakati mgumu sana sana, hususan ukienda katika afisi zao na kutafuta usaidizi, sana sana wakati ambapo tunajenga shule na kuhakikisha kwamba tunataka walimu wa kutosha. Ukienda katika majengo yao, tume hiyo inaendeshwa kama gari ya wizi. Tume ambayo haitaki kusikiliza, haina heshima na wabunge, haitaki kusikia vilio vya watoto wa eneo bunge, kwa sababu vilio vya watoto hao ni vilio vya uhaba wa walimu, ni vilio vya walimu kulipwa mishahara duni, ni vilio ambapo walimu hawana hata bima ya afya inayoweza kuwasaidia vizuri, ni vilio ambavyo vinasababisha watoto kupata alama za chini katika eneo bunge mbalimbali ama katika kaunti mbalimbali humu nchini Kenya. Uhaba wa walimu unasababisha alama mbaya. Kutumia walimu wa BOM na kukataa kuajiri walimu bado inazidi kuleta mzigo. Hii maswala ya walimu wakubaliwe kuchukuliwa katika sehemu zao. Wao pia ni binadamu. Najua kuna ule mpangilio wa asasi za serikali ya kwamba mtu akiweza kufanya kazi katika kipindi fulani katika kituo fulani kwa muda fulani ni sharti yaondolewe apelekwe sehemu nyingine, lakini utapata katika hii TSC sio hivyo. Wao wataendesha vile ambavyo wanataka, na sisi kama wabunge ndio tuna majukumu makubwa sana. Kwa mfano katika kipindi cha miaka mitano, kipindi cha bunge la 12 iliyopita, Nyali peke yake niliweza kujenga shule takriban 7. Hizi shule 7 mpaka wa leo katika bunge la 13, hizi shule zinaendeshwa na walimu wa BOM. Hizi shule zinaendeshwa na walimu watatu.
Honorable member, order. You may proceed to conclude because the time allocated for this motion is running out.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Labda kukumalizia tu ni kueleza matatizo ambayo yanatukumba sisi na mabadiliko ambayo tunataka. Kwa hivyo ni lazima, ni sharti kuwe na mikakati maalum, pia kuwe na mageuzi ndani ya TSC. Haiwezi kuwa ikiendeshwa na mtu mmoja miaka nenda miaka rudi. Vijana chapakazi, damu moto waingie katika ofisi hizi ili waweze kusikiliza vilio vya walimu, vilio vya wazazi na vilio vya watoto. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Time being 5. This motion is actually that we are done with that particular time, and may the mover be called upon to reply.
Kakamega mpo? Stesheni uipendayo Ingo FM inakuletea road show ya mwaka katika kaunti ya Kakamega, Ijumaa tarehe 4 na Jumamosi tarehe 5 Novemba. Tarehe 4 Ijumaa tunazuru Mumias, Matungu, Shianda, Navaholo, Malava, kambi ya Mwanza, Lurambi, na tarehe 5 Jumamosi tukutane pale Kakamega, Hayega, Malinya, Bukura, Kuisero, Mulwanda, Sabatia, Ekero na Mumias Town. Kutakuwa na vichekesho na burdan dosha. Pia utakutana na kikosi kizima cha watangazaji na waenzi wa Ingo FM. Usikose. Radio Ingo, ingini ya Mwitala.
Kakamega na yefu bwana.
The world's biggest sporting event is here with us. The FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar. KBC Television will air live 28 selected matches, while radio will beam live all the 64 matches. We would like to bring to the attention of the public that KBC is the only station that has exclusive 2022 FIFA World Cup free-to-air FTA broadcast rights for both TV and radio in the Kenya territory, and no other media outlet. Therefore, catch all the FIFA World Cup action live and exclusive on KBC TV and radio. KBC is indeed your true sports partner.
Gonna be sticking around every tomorrow.